Hello and welcome to the Novocastrian Live number 5 with Caleb Lamont. Druid Wars Part 2. At least we hope it's going to be tied into that. It is going to get a bit more interesting, a little bit more esoteric. You just mute me, bro. That'd be great. Thank you all for your support. It's been overwhelming lately. I've been really feeling the love. It's a beautiful thing, and it just keeps coming. And the amount of subscribers that I'm getting keeps going up as well, which everything helps. I'm actually figuring out ways that I can put up stuff that is locked and can only be unlocked for my paid subscribers. And there are things in the works. I'm going to get some of my work that I haven't released yet. Some of also maybe a little bit of work that me and Caleb haven't released yet. That's sort of been on the back burner for a while. And but yeah, that'll be strictly for paid subscribers if and when I get it up. This week, yes, this week we're going to be getting back into just how magic is used to manipulate people, individuals, but also manipulate groups, and how this stems all the way back from the times of the ancient Britons, but it also occurred around the world as well. The ancient British sites, for one in particular last week that I mentioned, was very interesting. That I remembered it, but it took a bit of brainstorming after the podcast to remember it all. And this was, let me see. Here we are. So I wrote a huge folder of essays. I think at the time it was the first time I was trying to write something, and it ended up being a very foolhardy and ambitious attempt. However, there was a lot of gold that came out of that, and I'm still diving back into it every now and then. So my research centered around the old sacred, the holy sites in my city, and how they had been paved over, and a lot of the cases, the old holy wells had been culverted over and diverted underground, so that they become underground streams rather than deans and the babbling brooks and the rivulets that course through my city. One place in particular where the main confluence, the main holy stream throughout my city was called Pandon Burn. We also we call it, in England we call deans burns. We also call them becks as well, which relates to an old word which refers back to the ancient Picts, Peckham, words like this. We also have the ponts or pants, where these ancient indigenous people would dwell, at the pants, the ponds, the wells, the springs. And Pandon relates to pant, pont, like we have Ponteland here as well. But pecks, the pecks, the ponts, they all relate back to this strange indigenous, and also this indigenous people are connected to the Druids. I do believe Ellie Waddell talks about them I think it's a Ellie Waddell, in the Phoenician origins of Britain, unless that's the other writer I'm thinking of. But anyway, someone can correct me in the comments. So this is what my research was all about. And what I didn't say on the other live stream is that this place called Pandon in the financial district of Newcastle, counting blocks, offices, etc. Pandon. I mean, getting away from pont and ponds and things like that. But Pandon, if you look into it, I think there was an ancient Irish deity named Don, and he was like one of the gods of the underworld. And you have Pan, of course, refers back to the Greeks, and Dionysus. But Pandon, the abode of Pan. Anyway, in the center of this place, so in the middle of all these accounting office blocks, is a sculpture called Give and Take. And it's a giant dragon egg. And this sculpture is right on top of the very city, right on top of the very center of a country town that the city was built on. It's actually, there are a lot of discussions between the ancient chroniclers of the city, and they don't know whether to decide whether the Pandon came first or whether it was a Ponzeli that came first, which was the Roman name for Newcastle. So yes, you have this dragon sculpture, and it's huge. It's glacial stone, and it's all covered in hexagrams. It's also the site where the most prominent stream was coursing through the city, as I've already said. It's rumored to have been the place where they converted Anglo-Saxon kings to Christianity. And like I said, these places were notable. These events were notable. It was huge that they were managing to convert these pagan kings into Christians, and they often did it at very holy sites as well, places which were once Druidic sites that had been co-opted. So yeah, it was most certainly a holy site of worship, and nearly as certain a place where the Druids would rendezvous, have their gatherings for war, discuss their war tactics, and probably made their sacrificial offerings there. As Pandon and Newcastle is right on the borderlands of Scotland. It's the main major river before you head off into Scotland. And now I thought of something there, but I'll get into it in a minute. War tactics, and probably made their sacrificial offerings there. And this was almost like the neutral principality, if you like. It was slated at one point to be the new capital of Britain, but it never came to pass. So yeah, the folklore chronicle called the Denham Tracts talks about this connection with the Druids. I'm not just pulling it out my arse. And the Denham Tracts is a very old pamphlet series that is in the archives for discussions about folklore surrounding Newcastle and also Northumberland. But yeah, a dragon's egg right in the center of this accounting, the main accounting place, which the fact that this main accounting place is the office blocks are encircling this huge glacial stone, which is sculpted to look like a dragon's egg, and it is surrounded by a grove of trees. don't know if anyone's seen Twin Peaks, but it's like the Grove in Twin Peaks. It's like the grove that leads to the Black Lodge, and these trees dotted around it, almost like a stone circle, but they're trees instead. Which also indicates to me that there was a sacred grove there. There could have been a stone circle there, an ancient stone circle. And I'll get into there's more about this, right? Because this is astonishingly, this is actually mentioned in one of the major archaeological mainstream textbooks on the finds to do with Newcastle. It's called The Eye of the North, an archaeological assessment of Newcastle upon Tyne. And in this book, let me just get this up here so I keep myself right. Yes. So there's a place in Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, called the Thornborough Henges. And this is thought to be another major gathering point, just like Newcastle was thought to be. And the Eye of the North, this book goes into, it talks about, discusses the fact that the major road, the most ancient route leading to North Yorkshire, I think it's it's one of the A roads. It might be even the A1 that leads all the way down to Thornborough Henge. And Thornborough Henge is this colossal 3-henge piece that stretches over like a mile and a half. These huge henges, 3 huge henges in a constellation which pays tribute to Orion's belt. I was supposed to look that up before we went live, and just to make sure that it is Orion's belt. So I'm hoping these 3 stars, these 3, the order. I hope it's the reference that I'm remembering. I hope it's the right reference that I'm bringing up here. But anyway, so this was a major gathering for these Thornborough Henges. They go back. I think they're just younger than Avebury by a few hundred years, maybe 1,000 years. And this was you can tell that this, when the ice melted, they wanted to show how their territory had grown, but also they were marking out the new pathways of the ley lines, very much like Long Meg and her daughters. The site of where these Thornborough Henges is, it's the landscape you can see all around for miles. It's beautiful, yeah. That's it, yeah. I mean, these things are huge, and that's one henge, and then you have to walk up a little while up to the next one, and then the other one's hidden in a wood. There's been like a whole grove grown in the third one to the north. And I've been to this place. It's magnificent. I have videos I haven't released from this yet. So if you become a paid subscriber, hopefully I'll be able to release these, because I have been wanting to release them, but I haven't. I've been too busy, really. But anyway, so this road, the main road, goes all the way up to, it leads from Thornborough Henges all the way up to Newcastle, and this is marked. They actually say this in the Eye of the North, this mainstream textbook on the archaeological finds in Newcastle, and they say that means there was another prominent henge here, probably, and this is marked. This is suggested in the book. This is a big thing for archaeologists to put this out there. I don't really think they thought people were going to read this thing, and probably they're not. I only accidentally came across the book. And so anyway, this Thornborough Henges was obviously a place where people would gather, and they would have their marketplaces there, but they would also do their. They would gather a lot like Newcastle. It would be a place where they would convene and talk about the invasions and how best to go about protecting themselves from them. Newcastle the same, and that the book on the archaeology of this place talks about how there was probably a major henge in Newcastle, a major stone circle as well. And in this book they talk about how there were roundhouses, ancient prehistoric Britain roundhouses, the foundations of them and the remnants of them found on in the center of Newcastle, and these were just paved over, no commemoration to this day, no plaque saying they found these things here. They marked them down in the archaeological finds when they were gutting the place out, making new foundations for the streets and the buildings there. But yes, this suggests a big feature was built at Newcastle, but it has been so thoroughly destroyed in the building of the city. Notable stone circle or henge even. It would probably be easier to get. Probably the henge would probably be easier to get rid of, really, because you just have to build on top of it and dig a new. Just gut it out and put whatever you wanted there. Whereas a stone circle is a bit harder to get rid of the evidence for that, especially if some of the stones have been sunken right down. One sec. Yes. So in Pandon, there is this dragon egg right there called it's a sculpture called Give and Take. Now, what is this thing? Right? What does it represent? I mean, how much more Templar can you get? A dragon egg, Saint George and the dragon. But I mean, what is this, like the dragon that hoards the gold? Is that why it's outside of there? Or is this the progeny of Set we're looking at here? Because Set was named Typhon, and he was associated with Typhon. Typhon was a dragon-like creature. So is this the progeny of Set we're looking at here? I mean, why is there a giant reptilian egg in the middle of an accounting district of any city anyway? Well, has the dragon made its nest here? And what is the dragon? There it is. Yeah. Well, inside its grove, and look, it's like a henge, right? It's like a stone henge. I mean, if you know what an actual henge is, you talk about stone henge, that's a stone circle, but it's on top and in the middle of a henge, which is a ditch. It's a circular ditch, really. And it's just dug into the earth, an enclosure. Whereas this is a stone enclosure, almost like an amphitheater type thing. It descends into the earth. If people have a look, and if they remember Twin Peaks, they'll remember the grove of trees. It looks exactly like the one out of the movie. Very, very strange stuff. So, getting back to it, bringing this back. So what does this do to the people who go to these places and work in these office blocks every day? I mean, they must think they're pretty special. I mean, they must give them the impression that they're pretty special. Right? If they're seeing that every day, passing that every day, they must think they're pretty illustrious. Where we are looking after Schmog's hoard of gold, right? Where we are, but not only that. I mean, the motifs, the massive stone in the middle. It reminds me of the huge stone you see at Long Meg, just sitting by itself. And some of the stones you see at Avebury as well. It's very reminiscent of some of them stones. So in and of itself, it's a stone circle because there's a stone in the middle of the circle. And it just tells me that there used to be a made and the stream where you can see that sculpture, what Caleb showed you on the screen there. The stream heads straight underneath the underground stream that used to be panned and burned, the Dean. This which is now an underground river, flows underneath there. And I got to thinking, yeah, it must make them feel pretty special. It must make them feel like they're part of that magic, like they're part of the in crowd, like they are the new priesthood in a way. And right?
Are you stalling Nate?
Sorry, what?
Are you stalling Nate?
Oh, not
Are
at
you
all.
What do you think?
I was just riffing. I just wanted to get that out because I think it's a good place to start from, especially from last week, where I just kind of left that open ended with just mentioning Pandan and not really going into it. And like I said, I had a bit of a brainstorm over the weekend with a friend, and it helped me to see what I wanted to say about that place rather than just leaving it open ended. But with that, we can get to the quotes. Or if you want to say something on that, that'd be great.
Well, there was a presentation I saw some time ago where they said that the pyramids originally had water flowing and underground channels under the pyramids, but I can't remember who was saying that. But they did this whole study on it, and they thought that it was because the water movement going under the pyramids caused some sort of energetic interaction, So it's interesting that you're finding all of these underground streams and everything that used to be above ground. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's also interesting that they've paved over all of this. Anything sacred that was there before, they've paved over it, made it a cult. Most people walking down there won't even know what was there, have any idea. And that is what is there, the underground river, which, as we know from researchers like Michael Tassarian, and also there's actually a book on underground rivers as well, which I use for my essay, which talks about how the Freemasons actually describe themselves as an underground river. In a major Freemasonic conference, I think it was like a world Freemasonic conference or something like that. But they cut people off from these sites, and yet the occult mockeries. I mean, even just let's not look at it a mockery. It is, but let's just look at it as them preserving some memory, so that they can use it. They can dress this place up. They can make it illustrious, make it look prestigious. Meanwhile, any meaning and any esoteric power that this place has, it's gone. It's been displaced, as we said last week. The vortex has been moved, and we don't know where they've moved that vortex to. And well, also, I got to think, what residual energy is still there now. It's still being drawn elsewhere, while there are people who are, but it serves as a psychological weapon, if you like, as well, and a spiritual weapon. Anyway, so
yeah, let's go ahead and hop into the quote. So, it's a person that has to remain confidential. I have permission to use the quote, but this quote is extracted from an interview that I recorded, actually a couple interviews, and had to do with a group of people who essentially were part of a cult, but a larger cult that involved even more of a large network in the United States, and I tried to keep it very sort of like double blind, unbiased, in order to sort of not like lead. And one of the reasons that this statement is interesting, in my opinion, is because uh, this quote comes from a person who doesn't get on the internet, doesn't watch YouTube, doesn't read, doesn't get on social media, doesn't have any sort of exposure from the internet whatsoever. Um, so they're not pulling their ideas from anything online, and they're not pulling their ideas from books or anything. Everything that they're making a statement on comes from actually meeting these people. So what do I mean by these people? Well, there is a cult, but as we're going to see, as is explained in the quote we're about to read, um, there's people sort of in the cult that don't know they're in it, so to speak, because it's like a big soup. They make this big soup that everybody swims around in, right? But not everyone in it knows what's going on, and we'll talk about that as well. And I'm being kind of vague, just out of respect to the person's privacy and everything. But um, also keep in mind this quote is talking about some stuff that's pretty fucking far out there, and uh, a lot of what happened with these things that it specifies was definitely involved with drugs. So psilocybin mushrooms, Molly, cannabis, all kinds of minds expanding or altering, or however you view those drugs, definitely was under that. However, despite how far out it may be, uh, I the information, I did my own legwork to uncover things about these people and places that he specified, and I found out it wasn't no fucking joke. It really wasn't. Very very real people, very real places, and very real practices that he's talking about, regardless of whether you want to believe the possibility of the uh, phenomenon that he also talks about. So I'll just leave it at that for a moment, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, if I had to describe it, it's kind of like Hunter S. Thompson has nothing on this shit, basically. Right? This is beyond him and his scope. That's not to say he didn't know about this kind of stuff either. This is from a confidential American source. In the covens, you got the younger groups of kids who are just getting into it, that they coax into it, telling them, oh, you can use your energy for this, using the energy of the trees and things. It's all a lie. It just brings them in. In each circle or coven, there's a higher person that runs the circle. That person is attached to a higher level, and they tell him what to do. So they get these circles together, and these kids sit around and do little circles and things, not realizing that the energy they are putting out is just being sucked up and used by somebody else to either feed their demons or do other negative things. They feed on negative energy. They can also feed on positive energy, which is even more powerful until they drain them of their energy, and then they move on. With deep Satanism individuals, it's all about control, body control, and control of the spirit. And once they get a hold of somebody deep like that, they get control of their spirit. And once the upper ones are the only ones who have the knowledge of how to do all this. The lower ones get a little glimpse of it. End for now.
Yeah. I don't know if the audio was chopping up, but it looked like you maybe skipped a line or a couple of lines a couple times, or otherwise it's just the video. Um, but yeah,
How okay.
yeah. But in any case, that was the gist of it
Yeah.
there.
No
There,
problem. I think I read it all.
yeah.
Yeah. I made a mistake. I almost reread a line and I stopped and then I read the line I was supposed to read.
Okay, so it's not the audio, but yeah, no, it got the gist of it. Yeah, so far we're talking about the formative stages of this is where this is the entry into this cult, basically from the bottom level for a new person. They have their guys watching over these little meetings that are happening. So this is not like the normal cult recruitment, I would say. Uh, it's not like you show up and like sign up, so to speak. They're already in these social situations. They're putting themselves into these social situations which they're taking control of, and the first thing they do is start getting people to work with energy, as they call it, energy work, or showing you stuff about energy. This is how they're starting the process. Uh, Very much having to do with energy. The idea of being able to use your energy and all this kind of thing. So let's just keep going.
Okay. They can transmit the stolen energy from one person to another person far away, even in another country. If you've got a circle of 200 people and you got one guy there who's the one, nobody knows because they all think it's one circle and they're all doing it together. Bullshit. There's one guy there who knows what's happening, and his intent is to transmit it to the higher energy that can open it up and get it out to the galaxy, the universe, or whatever. A lot of these locations and events are a feeding ground. They open up these portals of energy and feed on these people. They go there with good intent, but leave feeling drained and feeling bad.
Right. So we've even uncovered uh, evidence that they're actually making vortexes and portals and shit like this on their land. And I showed you pictures of this, Nate. Now they can do that and then uh, do the ritual or whatever, and then just um, clean up afterwards before everybody like comes over for the party, so to speak. So if you're one of these new people and you're showing up to some property, how do you don't know what happened there. Um, the week before, you know? So whether you believe in these things or not, um, they're doing it. So their idea is that they can do a ritual on this spot of land, and then when you show up later, they've you don't see the evidence, but there's like a vortex there or whatever kind of situation may be. But what he's talking about here, they can transmit the stolen energy from one person. Um, so he's talking about a circle of 200 people. Now, what did Tim Refat say in his quote before? That's how having a group of people standing around in a circle holding hands, that's actually a technique for creating a vortex, right? Especially if everybody is moving the energy in one direction, you know. So if everybody standing there doing it is pulling energy through one hand and pushing energy through the other hand, that creates you know um, the motion. So, and Tim said that that's how they unlock a vortex that's been moved to another location. So here again, we have him saying it. And like I said, this guy here that we're reading from right now, uh, he doesn't get any of his info from the internet. He doesn't get any of his info from uh, books or anything like that. So everything he's talking about is stuff that he saw going on with his own eyes or intuited. Uh, but it's all observations that he made basically in person. Um, because he's saying that uh, you gotta, because everybody there, he says, nobody knows because they all think it's one circle and they're all doing it together. But there's one guy who knows what's happening. So that's the valuable thing about this guy, though, is when he was there at these events, um, he was the one there who could see that everything wasn't quite right, right? So, um, by and large, everybody there for the most part was just there for the social event, for the drugs and the party, right? But he could see that there was another smaller group of people there that were setting things up in a certain way, right? But we'll keep going here.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about circles, and we're talking the just referring back to this sculpture, give and take. I mean, Tim Rifat talks about a lot about quartz, quartz crystals being transmitters of magical power or energy, should we say? And they can direct it. Uh, and the traffic, the human traffic, for lack of a better phrase, going around this sculpture has to go clockwise in a way. It comes down the hill and then goes. Not many people go up the hill. They mainly come down the hill to go down to Pandan and then do their thing, either go to work or just going past the sculpture. So you have all those people, all those bodies going in a certain direction around that thing. And you also got the central stone, which this glacial stone, which I think has a lot of the way it looks like it has a lot of quartz in it. And it's something about sealing off this air. Feels like this area has been sealed off, but that the energy's been redirected elsewhere. It truly feels like one of these devices. Obviously, we're talking about people. We're talking about people in a ring that are almost set up like a grove, right? A grove of trees, but instead we're using human beings instead of trees to do it. and it's very interesting. But anyway, I'll keep going. They start them out young. Most of the people in the circles don't know what's going on. Knowledge is power. That's why they've got the magic books that only certain individuals are allowed to read. All these people in black magic think they are going up the line. They think they are going to get more knowledge. But you're being tricked because the knowledge you're being given is fake. It's fucking fake. But to us, it feels real. They all want more power. They boost your ego because they can harvest from somebody who is ego tripping. Then, when their ego is torn down, they can harvest the energy from that. As long as it takes them up to a higher position, they'll take out everybody they know. They don't even care. They get them believing it's all about nature. We're all a part of nature. We're part of the same energy as nature. So we can all sit here and think about nature and produce this nice, good, positive energy. Meanwhile, you got someone over here, taking that positive energy and using it. Just because it's positive energy doesn't mean he can't use it for negative. That gives him more power. He's not going to tell these people what he's doing. If you want to go and study energy, do your own. Trust what you know. Don't trust what this guy over here is telling. Just because he's been in it for 50 years. He's been in it for 50 years for a reason. It's so subtle, nobody knows about it. They don't want people to connect and see what's going on around them. If they saw what was going on, they could actually change. That's the last thing people want, is for people to see what is going on.
Yeah. So he saw this happening in person, how basically you have people show up and they're just oblivious, they're just there for a good time. And all of it's under the pretext of just showing up, hanging out, and having a good time. But there's this group of people there, part of the cult, who's drawing everybody into to this other aspect of it, like, oh, it's energy, yeah, and all this kind of shit, right? So, but they've got it all worked out. They know exactly where they're leading, like the Pied Piper. They're leading everybody down towards, and it gets pretty fucking sophisticated, as we're about to see. Like once it gets further down the line. Um, but the newbies who they do draw in, they they initially draw in newbies. At that point, the newbies are there, and they're getting a little taste of um, what they think is power, right? But of course, they're being given fake knowledge, and what he said is substantiated by what Tim Refat said as well. Is that Tim Refat says everybody in magic is using uh, the incorrect tree of life, and every magic society is based off of the incorrect configuration. So it corroborates what he's saying. Um, the real uh, the real books aren't given out for them to read. So the real knowledge is kept away. They're given the newbies are given exactly what they're supposed to read, you know. And then you have the people who've been in it for 50 years. There's a reason that they've been in it for 50 years. But let's continue.
Before we do that, though, he mentioned ego tripping, and this is kind of what I wanted to get into. I was kind of stumbling with the whole. I mean, this civic architecture, when you see it and you're around it every day, and feel you're a part of it, makes you feel like you're special, right? A big glacial stone going through that grove of trees. It's very ancient. It goes back a long, long way. Now, I I know I'm aware of my shortcomings when I'm doing live streams, and one of the things that we need we need work on, especially me. I need to stop and realize that some people may not even know who the Druids are. You know, we're just kind of like riffing as if they do. The Druids were holy men and great teachers of renown. They knew about medicine. They knew about magic. They knew about um, the the cosmos and how the cosmos works and how the earth works and how it interacts with the universe, interacts with the sun, interacts with cometary bodies. They knew how to. They were masters of manipulation. They knew how to rally. They knew how to tap into the psychology of a population and get them charged, get them afraid as well, get them afraid of what might happen if they didn't follow their orders, get them charged for war if the nation was being invaded. The Romans used to send their important progeny, their kings to be, to these holy men, to these teachers, because they knew more than everybody else. They knew, and they knew statecraft better than anyone else. And like I say, they knew magic. Now, ego tripping. You go down to this sculpture, and it makes you feel important, but it rings on something atavistic. It goes back to the archetypes of these great teachers. They're the things that they would construct, the groves, which I had a discussion over the weekend, and it's obvious that the groves must have came first, and then I thought, well, what are these stone circles that they're for as well? And perhaps they were there to mark the most ancient and important groves that were once there, that maybe had been taken down, that maybe had been cut down, and so you have this idea that you're charging people's egos and you're feeding off that energy. And I do believe that these places are set up to do that as well. It's great. I knew there was a reason why I brought this stuff up at the beginning, just to set the tone. Because look at the Civic Centre in Newcastle, another place that people really should take a look at in the context of what I've been talking about. And that also we've talked about in previous videos, that the council chamber where these people convene as great big groups is in a circular building that's in the shape of a mushroom. But they managed to not only make this thing look like a magic mushroom, they put red lights on it when the Amanita muscaria is due to come out and things like that, and it actually looks like a giant Amanita muscaria mushroom in the nighttime. But during the day, you circle around the front. There's a lake that encloses it, that encircles this place. And you look carefully at the patterns and the textures on the building, the ashlar, the way it blends in with each other. And you look at a picture of Fingal's Cave, another major sacred place to do with the Druids. I don't know if the Druids had progeny, if they had offspring, and that, it goes all the way down into our genetics. Like, this kind of stuff is in. We know it somehow. We know these sacred places somewhere in the deepest recesses of our phylogenetic memory. These things are recalling and are charging our ego, probably without even knowing it. Just makes us feel special. It makes us feel important, and it gets our energy up. And to me, this is the key. Almost, it's like eureka. We understand this now. This is they're feeding off the people that serve this system as well, not just us. So yeah, moving on. Next quote. Let's go. That's the last once for people to see what's going on. About 80% of the people in the rings don't know what they're being used for. In every ring, there is a person who is the controller. He's the one teaching them how to do it and what you have to do. He's actually from a higher ring. The higher people come down to the lower rings to get these lower people in. They then advance certain people up to the higher rings. Then the even higher rings send people down to bring those individuals up even higher. And the rings at the second level, there are usually two guys from each ring that belong to the upper level there. And each level has contact with and each level has contact with each level. There's always someone there from a higher ring. Serious rings. Not some kids in their backyard who created their own coven. That is bullshit. Where they buy some black magic books and they end up fucking themselves up. The real rings that people try to get you into, they tell you that you are a god or you are a goddess and you should be with us. They tell you that you can expand your knowledge and expand your energy. They just want to get you in so they can use your energy. They boost your ego. Once you get a good ego boost, your energy level goes from here to here. They initiate the new member and give them a massive ego boost because it's a lot of energy that they can then use. All they need is for 6 or 7 people to stand around them, go into a trance, and they can suck their energy and do what they want with it. The controller of the ring can transport himself to other locations, bringing the power of the ring with him. Once the concentration of the ring is broken, the power of the ring is broken. The advanced level controllers are taught how to take pain. They call on their gods. They feed on their energy. They have demons to feed. They go out in advance and bury crystals in order to set up ley lines. In the opening ritual, they call on the gods of the north, east, south, and west, etc. Everybody makes a big, giant circle holding hands. They are all supposedly there for peace, etc. And the goddess of the north is going to speak and say something. Then the goddess of the east says something, etc. They tell the participants that they are calling in good spirits. But how does one trust that that is the truth? One must remain skeptical and not necessarily trust that they are good spirits. The staff is used as a very powerful magic. Take, for example, the wizard and his staff. It is a wood staff made from a tree. He has the power of connecting with all the energies of the trees around him. If he wants to be somewhere else to see what's happening, he can put himself in the energy of those trees and shuffle through those trees. He doesn't have to know where he's going. But if his intention is to be where something is happening, and he knows where he wants to be, and his intention through the energies of the trees, it will take him there. He tracks it with intention. It's not like he can physically just transport himself there. He has mentally transported his energy there.
Yeah, so here we're talking about what may be known in common parlance as remote viewing, where the people in this cult at the higher levels are um, trained in this. And when he says that they're trained, when he says that they're taught how to take pain, it's um, because when supposedly when you are remote viewing or projecting out, shit can happen to you. So when your energy body comes back into your physical body, whatever happened to your energy body ends up happening to your physical body. So it would be important to know how to take pain, right? Because chances are you're going to get fucked up. Um, but we can see here they have an elaborate hierarchy, like with the precision of compartmentalization of a military, essentially. And so they're putting people in trances. They're telling their new members that they're going to basically achieve godhood. You know, they're going to become a god or a goddess by joining with the cult and learning the teachings and everything, and they're going to become a goddess and all this kind of shit. Um, of course, that's where it gets into the ego boost. But you know, as far as the remote viewing thing, they're taking um they're doing that also not just by their own energy, but they're having a group of people stand around them, like you said, like 7 people stand in a circle around them and go into a trance. Now, with those 7 people standing there in a trance with their energy, that gives the controller the extra energy boost to take and uh, astral project his self or remote view. It's almost like having an extra engine, you know, on your helicopter or whatever. You know, it's that extra energy is he's actually tapping into those people standing there and using that to go go travel around. Um, so you know, I'm no expert in remote viewing or astral travel or any of that kind of shit, right? But um, I know that there's been a fuck ton of books written about it, and that it's been around for a long time, and that it's something that's you know been studied, you know, not only by occultists and things like that, but by also primitive societies like shamanic tribes and things, but also the government itself has actually spent money to research that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
this is a big thing about Stranger Things. It's a big motif in Stranger Things. Throughout the whole thing, she's doing astral projections at the behest of her government experimenters, who basically raise her and fuck her up. Um, there is a lot. There is a lot, actually. You know, what is it? Stranger things have happened. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things in Stranger Things that have happened, and I think that's what they're hinting at. You know, um, but wow, there was something else I was going to say. Russ Viking mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
well,
I
I
think
was
there's some.
also going to say that even though I don't have it as part of the quote here, that this person told me that the way it is that when one of these higher level cult members would sort of be projecting or remote viewing in your vicinity. In other words, that people from the cult somewhere far away are uh, coming to you through like you know the remote viewing procedure or whatever. That you can see them there, and it's like they're like sort of like a sparkly mist, but you can see the person there, or he could see the person there, right?
Hey,
So,
Halloween's over. Stop trying to spook me, man.
Halloween's never over.
Yeah. Um, not for them. um, Business as usual for them, right? But yes, Russ Viking says that perhaps it's the descendants of the female dragon court marking their conquest. This sculpture, give and take, in the financial district of this of my city, and yeah, I do think that, and if the thing is made out of quartz, and as we saw in the picture that Caleb presented, it's buried. It's buried in the ground. It descends down 5 steps, I think it is, into the. So I mean, it's partially buried as well. So and if it is made of quartz, then to me, it's not only marking their conquest, but it is a magical device. And I wouldn't be surprised if they used it to astral project, and also to set up a ley line for themselves too, using the ancient occult power of that once holy site. So next quote, yeah. Give me 1 second. Everybody makes a giant circle holding hands. The locations they use have a facade of good energy. Sometimes these energy vampires just do it unconsciously because they're not happy with themselves. So they're going to fuck with sorry. So they're going to fuck with somebody else, and they suck their energy. They're tearing somebody. They're tearing everybody up. They may be pagans, but what kind of pagans? Pagans are a big span of garbage. Just saying, you've got a lot of garbage, but you also got good. But you also got good pagans. They're doing their shit right. They're blending with the earth. But then you've got all this other shit out there. They say to themselves, hey, we got all this energy we can play with. We can do anything. We don't have any consequences. Right now, they think they can walk away scot-free. They think they have no consequences. If you use Earth's energy negatively, you're going to know about it. It's not good.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
So,
What's the Wi-Fi? Sorry, bro.
well, it's also atavistic, just the idea. He says, these locations have a facade of good energy. Well, seeing as how is usually happening in like a natural-esque setting or in the woods, um, and like the stone circles, so even if it's not like a true ancient site or whatever, it is atavistic because when you're there and it's styled that way, it sort of an atavistic, I guess I should explain that word. Atavistic is like reminding you of, or reminding your ancestral mind of things from the past. Like, for instance, if your ancestors were cavemen, then having you sort of like, if you were to go into a cave and build a campfire and spend the night in there, that would be like an atavistic experience because it would like be calling on your ancestral memories of like similar experiences from hundreds or thousands of years ago. So that's what atavistic means. Also, certain places are deliberately designed to have an atavistic atmosphere. Um, So that's what he's kind of talking about with the facade of good energy. Uh, it is a sort of atmosphere that stirs up something within you. You know, these places, locations, especially these really beautiful natural forested locations. It's an atavistic vibe, you know. But you know, there's vampires running it, so uh, the the whole experience, you know, there's something in your brain telling you that the whole experience is supposed to be something positive.
Yeah,
That it's all supposed to be heading in a direction, you know, for something positive that's good for you. But the whole fucking operation is run by vampires.
I was just thinking that one of these things that I didn't tell you. Obviously, Newcastle upon Tyne is upon a big river. Um, it's got a very old name as well. Um, might even go back to the old name for Poseidon, Tan. Very very old name. But we might also go back to Oceanus, like Tian, the Janus, so it might go back to Roman times. But anyway, this place, Pandan, it's right next to the big river, and I'm assuming, you know, these big rivers are also a place of uh, atavistic feeling. You know, you go there and you see this big expanse of water. You stare at the patterns in the water. I know when I've been standing there, it does something to me. You know, I stand there and almost meditate, looking at them, looking at the rhythm, looking at the heartbeat, almost pulse of the river. I feel in tune with it. I feel like I want to just keep walking along. Sometimes I do, walking along and just staring at it, seeing it almost talks to me, and I talk to it back. So, but there's something there, and you know the Pandan burn, it still flows to this day underground out into the River Tyne. And we've mentioned other streams like that, Coventina Well, which actually, in the way I when I researched it, it turns out that Coventina was almost seen as like the mother, the mother stream of the Tyne, which actually was the site of an old Mithras temple as well. This old Meg's Dean, I forgot to mention this when we brought it up in one of our live streams, was that the Romans put their Mithras temple there, a major one. And so, yes, along with these beautiful woods and places like that out in the wilds, you also have big ancient rivers, which I imagine do the same thing and almost bring nature still. Even though these cities, they try and drum nature out, it's they can't we can't get rid of that river. They use it. They tap it for all it's worth and utilize it like it's a resource, like it's a channel for one of their for one of their lines of energy, you know. But it's and frame the place becomes inframed and it's mostly shut off. Actually, it's very hard to even just get your boat down the time without paying loads of tolls because they have to lift up this huge bridge to let you past, which is actually in the shape of an eye. The old name for Newcastle is the Eye of the North. Oh, is that because, I mean, again, astral projection, the Eye of the North? Was there a site here that sort of, when the Druids came here, they were able to astral project throughout the country? The Eye of the North. I never really understood that, you know, until I started looking into these matters. It's actually the name of that archaeological book I was talking about to do with Newcastle. It's called The Eye of the North. Again, there was a henge here. I mean, henges in themselves, you look at Avery, They look like eyes, look like giant eyes carved into the ground. These huge ditches. But anyway, go ahead, man.
Yeah. See, wouldn't that be interesting if we found out that that was like a significant feature of the abilities that they use to defend their lands, you know. We talked about how the Irish, you know, never got conquered by the Romans, and Scotland never got conquered by the Romans. Was it just because the Romans, you know, just decided, hey, this is a nice place to put our picket fence up, picket white picket fence up, you know, and just call it a day? We don't need to go any further. Or was there were they just not able to conquer any further? You know, it's just a speculation here. But what if these types of remote viewing abilities were an integral part of defending from the Romans? You know, um, or being able to not only get information from far away, but to even project yourself to somebody and fuck with them. You know, especially say like the
Exactly.
general of the army. Uh, you know, instead of sending your troops over there, you just like, and obviously, you know, is what we were reading about here. Um, Having those people around you, giving you their energy, allows you to even project even harder with more force. So could uh could they could they gather together at one of these stone circles, you know, with that already has its own energy vortex there, you know, have your people gather around you and lend their energy to you, and now you can fucking go straight to the general of the army on the other side of the field and fuck with him, get in his head, you know. Is that something that happened? Maybe it was. Would the Romans have written about it? Probably not.
Well, they took over that site, which was an ancient goddess site, Old Meg's Dean, and they put a fort there called Brockalisha, and they also put their Mithras temple right where the well is. So you could go when you descended down. Actually, went the place has been excavated now, and the finds have been put in a place called Chester's Fort, which is a little bit further down. And actually, at Chester's Fort, there's a stately home, like adjacent to Chester's Fort. And what we know about stately homes, well, we know that they're often built on old sacred sites, or and have their own stone circles. So it tells me that the Romans, what, like just like that documentary that guy put out called Beyond the Wall. I keep mentioning it because mainly because I have to watch this again just to remind me, because when I watched it, there was a lot of things that came to me in it. No doubt they'll come back to me again when I rewatch it. But this was not a wall for defending. It was impossible. This thing's like 80 miles long. They didn't have enough soldiers. So what else was it there for? Block out. You build a wall to keep people out, right? But if as long as you can defend it. So then, what else were they blocking? Then, well, was it the astral projection abilities of these druids? Were they trying to disrupt even just their whole field that they'd set up, their whole field of control, field of manipulation, their magical field, their matrix, if you like? Uh, uh, and just set it up so they would just messing with these guys as much as possible, because the Romans weren't in the habit of building these massive walls. I mean, were they? Again, somebody's likely to. It's not something I've came across before. So why here? Why now? We know that the Great Wall of China. We know about the Great Wall of China, but we know that wasn't built by the Romans. So, but did they have a similar purpose as well with building the Great Wall of China? It makes me wonder, because again, it's not like you can defend these huge edifices, and the Roman wall, where these mild castles are set up and these major forts, are often next to very sacred holy sites, ancient holy sites. And it's almost like they saw, the Romans were like, okay, this is a definite line. We know, we can see where these guys are heading. And we keep hearing rumors that there's a lot of power tied up, and these sites are pretty important. We need to take over these, and we need to dominate them, or we at least need to be seen to be dominating them, and project that image, that psycho. I don't know how else to say it. Psychotronic image. Yeah, the Hadrian's Wall, the sacred sites that it lines up with, which is some of these sites are amazing. There's one in particular. There was a tree cut down called the sycamore. The sycamore at the Sycamore Gap in. It's one of the most famous points on the Hadrian's Wall. It actually ended up in one of the Robin Hood films with Kevin Costner in it. It's been cut down now, supposedly by some assholes who just decided to cut it down one day and as a laugh. I don't know too much about it really. But the place where that is, it's called the Wind Sill, the Wind Sill, and it's like this massive intrusion of igneous rock that comes up. It's like the shelf that just comes up, and it's almost like a Pillars of Hercules type of place, without the polygonal basalt, without the hexagonal polygonal assault, basalt pillars. But I mean, you take a look at this thing. I was just up there the other month. I actually went up there with my dad. And I said, Dad, I have to walk. I have to, one day we have to come back up here and walk down this thing. It's just too amazing. I can't believe I haven't walked down it before. But it's almost as if like the earth during the last cataclysm just went, and it just stopped there. And it's just like the shelf yeah, the whole land just lifted up, and then forevermore, just seeing this this shelf that is almost coming overlapping the land there. But a bit, as I say, I have like my own theories about where the Druids picked their most powerful spots, and also, I can't remember which writer talks about it now, but the old volcanic areas in Britain, I think, were definitely sites and are still sites today, because there's this residual energy that's still there, still from the volcanic activity millennia ago, and there's still little tiny pockets of volcanic activity across the UK, such as places like Cornwall and even in Scotland, I do believe. So, yeah, there's lots to get into there, but just a little bit more information about the Druids and about these Romans. They knew exactly what they were doing when they were putting this wall up, and it wasn't for what people think that it wasn't for the reasons that people today think they did it for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, when I have dreams where I'm flying, sort of like a fly through the sky kind of dream, I don't know if you've ever had those, but uh, they can be pretty interesting. But what always seems to get me messed up is the power lines. Because when it's it's not, but yeah, when I'm flying and then I encounter a power line, it confuses me about which way to go, or like continuing on with the path or whatever. Because like I get caught up around these power lines, um, and I kind of just get stuck there or whatever. And but I mean, because like flying dreams are some of the most cool dreams, that you can have, but usually they don't last very long because something will happen, and the dream just kind of just it doesn't last very long. But you know, I always wondered if there was something to having a line that would interfere or cause some sort of so if Hadrian's Wall was just there just to be like a line, um, in order to just be there because just that alone, just having that line there could be enough interference maybe to um, disrupt some of the astral projection or whatever that was going on. Um, and thinking about what it must have been like in ancient days when all of the stone circles were undisturbed. It's a wreck these days. We look at all of these different ancient sites and ancient stone circles, and it's like they're an absolute wreck. They're missing stones. They've been eroded. They've been just totally destroyed. But it wasn't like that. Uh, long ago. Before at a certain not too distant point in the past, all of those sites were pristine and still upkept in their original state. And if you were astral projecting and you knew the layout between these sites, you could just hopscotch your way anywhere, because it's the precision of these sites is so precise and lined up together that you could just hopscotch your way across the continent or across the world. And we've been kind of going too far into this today to like get into um, the Americas, but I kind of want to maybe next week go into the idea of the contact that the Druids had with North and South America and the interactions between them, and the idea that uh, a knowledge of these types of like uh, abilities were shared, between the Indians and the Druids. Because uh, think of everything we said about the energy that comes from people standing in a circle or holding hands in a circle or dancing in a circle, and think of the Indians, having these highly energetic dances around the fire, in a circle fashion and everything. I don't know if anybody out there's been to a powwow, but you can see how uh, they're definitely generating a lot of energy, a lot more than some of these old sort of like artistically rendered reenactments of Druidism, where it's just a bunch of dusty old white dudes in robes, just like uh, doing their thing. But uh, you
Oh,
know,
it's funny. Um, I watched a children's program with my son. It's called Ivor the Engine, and it's based in Wales, and they have a scene on it where they're all out in a traditional Wales uh, get together gathering on a traditional Wales holiday, and the choir is all dressed up as druids. They're all in white robes, and they come down to here, and they're all singing these hymns in Welsh, and so they had their ways. Right, they had their ways of chanting, getting that spirit up with their harmonies. I mean, the bards, talking about the bards of the druids. I mean, even in a children's show like that, you'd be surprised. And this thing is from the 1970s. This, you know, the best shows are definitely the oldest ones. And this thing, it's just amazing, amazing. I love this show, by the way. You know, if you have kids, everybody should watch this show with their kids. It's brilliant. They'll ask for more. But the the druids actually turn up here, and it's the the hairs go up on the back of your neck when you listen to this choral orchestra singing in unison. It's beautiful and it's powerful, and it shows you. You know, they it might not be the same, but they certainly just like the Indians will have their whoops and hollers and have their songs as well, right? They have their and the banging of the drums. Goes back to the old Stone Age, as Commons Beaumont would say. But I also just wanted to say that yeah, the the Romans were because you mentioned before that these um the line has been set there, but then they set up their holy sites next to the ancient Britain sites. So they put their Mithras temple right where the Coventina well, right where the spring was, where the offerings were made. And they were huge. You know, the guy who dug this up, he actually helped to design part of the city. Um, this guy was amazing. He was a lawyer as well, like a prominent lawyer. But he didn't understand why smart as this guy was, he didn't understand why they were throwing why why there was so much money down in this well. What was it, a storeroom or something like that? You didn't understand that, but yeah, they eventually figured out that the site was so prominent. They were just throwing their riches down there for this for this goddess, the triple goddess, by the way. It was a threefold goddess, and so they knew what they were doing by drawing that line, by co-opting these sites. They would immediately demoralize, and just screw up the heads of the um, diminish the connection with these sites, and they would boost their own men's. They would boost their own soldiers' egos by having taken them over and saying, "Look, this is our power now. These points serve us."
Yeah. Um. Yeah, man. I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, you were talking about Indians and their dances and their
Oh yeah.
songs. You want to go from there?
Yeah. I have some information about that I'd like to get into another time, but it would take a little too long to do it today. Um. Yeah, I've been checking out some research by the same guy who wrote when Scotland was Jewish. He also has a whole other set of books dealing with uh North American Indians. being descended from ancient Greeks and Egyptians. So, yeah. So, and see, this all ties in ways that um, bring things up to today, connecting it. And when you look at the idea of these cults that we've been talking about today, and suggesting maybe the idea that um, things haven't been forgotten, as far as certain tribes may have actually arrived here thousands of years ago, but they actually have history in Egypt, you know. And like Sean Ross says, the pharaohs never forget, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so
And then
yeah,
in the Great Deception, by Thomas Beaumont, I mean, he talks about, you know, how the world was so much more closer together back then, and it was far easier to get to a certain place in the world, because they were all connected. It's hard for us to imagine now, but it's something people should keep in mind. And I've been reading the book. I'm starting to collect quotes, and it feels like like a bit of synchronicity there, because it sounds like we'll be able to get into some of that next time. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, go ahead.
probably almost easier to travel the world back then than it is now. Now I don't. I'm still working on getting a passport, and there's all these hoops you have to jump through. But back then, I could have just jumped on a boat with some Irishmen and went anywhere.
Yes, and don't forget about the land bridges. One of the things that people forget, you know, that the world is much bigger than it was back then. It has had continents added to it. Uh, you know, it's hard for people, and not just that, oceans. It's had continents and oceans added to it over millennia. So was actually easier to get across because there was less distance to travel. And heads around that. Um, but I mean, if that's all for now, I think that's a good enough hint for next week. I'd just like to thank everybody who joined us. The chat has disappeared. I can't see the chat. So anyone who's been messaging, I could see it before, but now it's gone. So can you see what the chat said, Caleb? Because it's gone for me, and I'm afraid I left with it in case the live stream goes off.
Yeah, we have a quote from Russ Viking saying, Druids, Native Americans, and Jews have loan words. Indian ceremonies include moving in circles. Jews do the hora, which is done at weddings, bar mitzvahs, etc. There are too many corollaries to be a coincidence. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a terrific contribution there. That fills in some details. Um, Thank you, Russ. But yes, was there anything else? Any? No? Cool. Well, it's been an excellent episode. I feel like we've tied a lot of the themes that we were kind of just we were going on a journey last time. I feel like we can see the way forward now, and where we might end up next. Again, thank you to all of the new subscribers, and for the new paid subscribers I've gotten. It's I don't know how to thank you enough. Check out my article if you haven't already. Check out Caleb's site, vanhelsing.com, vanhelsинglibrary.com. And we'll see you next week for another live stream by the Novocastrian and Caleb. Have a great one, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one, y'all. Thanks.
See you later. Bye bye.